Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Read. I'm Stephanie, and today we are starting off with a brand new reading vlog for the magical readathon Orilium. So I'm not going to go through all the books that I am reading for this time because I did a whole dedicated TBR video, so I will link that above and down below in case you want to check it out. I will also include down below the link for the Twitter page in case you want to find more information on the readathon in general. There is a lot. G is doing so much for this readathon. It is insane. So I'm very excited to participate in this readathon. But the way how I'm going to format this vlog is that it's going to span over an entire month, but it might not necessarily take the entire month, purely depending on how quickly I read my stack of books. So there are 5 prompts for me to read in my original TBR, but there are also quests that G will occasionally release on Twitter, Discord, and her Patreon page as well. And let me tell you, it has been insanity since it started yesterday, and I managed to get a quest today. So I'm just going to talk about which book I'll be reading for that quest, as well as my initial reading plans for this video, and see like which book I'm going to read first. So the quest that I got today is the rebuilding quest, and it was on Twitter. Basically it just says I needed 15 mages where they're needed to rebuild Ilgurthian, if I pronounced that name correctly, after the Tar Ghoul attack, and they just need a crew to expedite the building restoration. And the prompt for this is to read a book with a building on a cover. So I'm gonna go with I Kissed a Girl by Janet Alexander. If you can see, there is the skyline here and there is a lot of buildings, so I feel like that would definitely fit. I am about to get the audiobook for this, so it is great timing on my end. So I'll probably end up reading this book early on. I have not tackled any of the books so far yet, just because it's been I have not read anything so far. Yeah, but so this is probably gonna be one of my earlier books that I'll be listening to get through this prompt. Another choice I have right now is Fence Volume 2, which is a very short graphic novel, and I feel like this is just a really quick way for me to get through one of my prompts for it. But I also want to like save it for when I want like a breather, for when I like more of my bigger prompts, I guess, like bigger books. So I'm not sure about this one. So right now I have these 4 books that I have to decide which book to start physically. I haven't decided which one yet, but it'll probably be one of these 2, mainly because these are fantasy and I solely read fantasy. I've decided I only read fantasy physically now. Like, no more audiobooks. They don't work for me, period. Like, I don't know, like I tried listening to it and I was like, well, if it's like easy magic system or whatever, it doesn't seem like it's really like intense, it's fine. But no, it is not fine. So I am purely going to read these physically. So once I am done with my current read, I'll probably jump into one of these 2. But I don't know, they're both like high fantasy, and that's all I really know about these 2 books for now. But yeah, anyways, I just wanted to like do this quick intro, and hopefully I will get to reading very soon. Alright, so just jumping in quickly, give you guys an update for my reading, because I have not updated you guys at all since I did my intro. But it is now April 4th and I have been primarily just listening to Survive the Night, which I am now at 63% of the way through. So I am really hoping to get through it either later today or tomorrow at the very latest. And I'm definitely flying through it because it is such a gripping read. It basically follows a girl called Charlie whose best friend slash roommate passed away recently, was actually murdered by someone called the campus killer, and that person is a serial killer, has killed 3 girls at this point, and no one can find out who this person is. All they know is that this is a man, and he's been going around killing students from colleges. And so this girl called Charlie, she is now stricken with grief because she could have actually prevented her roommate slash friend's death, because she was actually there but then she left early. So right now she's just overcome with grief, and for the past 2 months she has not really been able to function with work, with school, etc. And so right now she is going on a road trip to go back home, and she, I guess, finds someone randomly to drive her back, and this person is Josh. And Josh, as they are now taking on this road trip, heading back to her hometown while he's also going somewhere else as well. At least that's what he told her. So it's like kind of on the way for him to just drop her off. And as they are progressing through this road trip, they're sharing things about each other, she starts to realize that there are some discrepancies in terms of what he has told her and what she found out for herself. So now she is figuring out how to stay alive, as well as the fact that she is pretty much convinced that he is in fact the campus killer and that he is the one who killed her friend. So it is very intense. I have to say that I am not the biggest fan of the main girl. I feel like she's very, I don't know, like I just feel like it's very frustrating reading about her, because there's so many things where I'm just like, you can be doing this, you can be doing that, why are you doing this, why are you doing that? But then also, like, you know, I feel like I obviously have never been that situation, which thank God, like hopefully that will continue. So like I don't know, like the stress and the adrenaline, like how that's impacting her thinking. Not to mention she's also dealing with like mental issues as well, where she's actually been experiencing like hallucinations for the past few months, and that she will have these like movies in her head where she will just picture things vividly that will play out, but in reality they are, you know, not real. And so that's why she's also hindered with the whole like guilt thing, because she felt like her hallucinations couldn't really help bring the killer to justice, because she wasn't sure what she saw or what she did not see that night. And so there's a lot of stuff going on right now. So even though I'm like frustrated with her at some point, I'm like, I also understand like this is a different situation, and she's also dealing with like the mental hallucinations. I'm like, but it is frustrating sometimes to just read her like monologue or listen to her monologue, because she's like, and there's so many times when she could have left, and then she's like, well then she convinces herself to stay, and I'm just like, what are you doing? But then also like I get kind of where she's coming from, because she wants to bring him to justice and not just let him go. So there's a lot going on right now. I'm like really invested in the story. I would say that this is probably not my favorite Riley Sager book as of yet. Right now it's kind of a 3 or 4 star read for me, versus his previous books where I am just like invested like 100%, like everything is like so focused. This book I feel like I am, but I feel like my moments of like frustration with the main character is like taking me away from my enjoyment as well, which is why it's more like a 3/4 star read so far. But I don't know, like maybe this last third of the book will be super riveting and I'm super invested, so we'll see. But that's kind of my only update for now. The only other thing I want to mention is that there are 3 more quests that G released yesterday, and I have not decided if I am going to be picking up those quests or not. I feel like I want to, just because I'm trying to level up my guild tiers. So I feel like the more quests I do, the faster I'll level up. But also I already have like 6 books now, because I already took that other quest, so, and I have not even finished one. So I'm going to see, maybe like those 3 quests are free for all, everyone's, you know, available to do it, so I'm not super like pressured to take them if I want to or not, but we'll see. But yeah, those are the only updates I have for now. So just jumping in quickly and giving you guys another update, because I managed to finish my first book for this readathon, and that is Survive That Night by Riley Sager. This book I'm giving 4 stars. To be honest, this book was very much a solid 3-star read until the end, and the ending was a huge, like, it shocked me so much, because I felt like it came out of nowhere, but in a good way. Like I felt like it made sense, and I just never suspected this person at all. And there were just so many plot twists and turns, especially in the last like quarter of the book, that kept me like super invested. So that's why I gave the book 4 stars. But I would say the beginning half was very much a 3-star read. I didn't really care too much about Charlie. I felt like there were just so many incidences where I was like frustrated with her, because I felt like she could have left and escaped, and she didn't, because of like she kept making up reasons for her not to. And some of the reasons I was like, okay, I can kind of see, but also like, you're being dumb, so I don't know. But yes, anyways, like this book was probably like, out of all the Riley Sager books, I think this is probably my least liked one, because the other ones I feel like were always like really good, like I was invested the entire time. This one I felt like was just okay until the very end. So I would say that This is definitely my least favorite of all of his books, but I'm still gonna pick up his books anyways because I feel like the end definitely redeemed itself for me. But yeah, anyways, I'm very happy that I managed to finish my first book, and now I'm on to my second book for this readathon, and that's gonna be the Bromance Book Club. I just started it. I literally just started it like 10 minutes ago, so I don't have much to say, but it seems like I follow a guy called Gavin who apparently is about to break up or like have a divorce with his wife because he found out that his wife has been faking it, like the orgasm, like this entire time, and he like apparently like once he found out it hurt his like manly pride, and so he kind of like lashed out on her, and so now, you know, their marriage has now crumbled and he is just like freaking out because she's the best thing that's ever happened to him. He obviously doesn't want it to end, but he also knows that it's all his fault, because one, you know, like the way how he reacted to finding out that she was faking it was not good, and also the fact that he's like, I can't even satisfy my own woman, you know. So I'm curious, and it turns out like all his buddies, I haven't got to the part where they do the book club, but it seems like all his buddies, they already read romance books, so I don't know, but I'm curious. It seems very intense so far, like right off the bat, because he's very drunk and he's just like in shambles right now, basically crying about his marriage. So I'm like, what's happening? But yeah, I'll update you guys as I read more of that book, but so far pretty good start. It is now only April 5th, so I already read one book, so not too bad. Alright, so just jumping in quickly because I just finished my second book of this readathon, and that is the Bromance Book Club. I am going to give this book 4 stars purely because I love the idea of men reading romance books as a way for them to understand the woman's psyche, because at the end of the day, romance books are written by women for women, generally speaking, and so men reading this, I feel like they will understand how women think and like what they want. So I feel like that concept I'm like so on board with. Like I feel like guys should read more romances. But in terms of the story itself, I would say this is a 3-star read for me. Not because like I didn't like it. I did like it. It just wasn't amazing. Like I don't know. I felt like when this book came out, like I think at this point it's been out for a few years, everyone was talking about how cute this was, and I feel like it just set my expectations very high, and the reality was that it was cute, but it wasn't anything like overwhelmingly special, or like, you know, it wasn't even that spicy really. Like it literally had like maybe like 2 scenes that was kind of steamy, and that was it. So in terms of the spice, this book didn't have a lot of that. In terms of the romance, I mean, it's all about romance, so it definitely had that, but I don't know, like I just felt like I enjoyed it, but I wasn't like, you know, laughing and like being all like, oh, like the entire time. Like that was not me while reading this book, and that's fine. Like I feel like not all romances do that, and you know that this is just one of them. The next book I'm gonna pick up, I think, is another audiobook, just because I have so many like physical books I'm trying to read right now, and I just don't like, I'm still reading that series I've been talking about. Like I'm on 3rd book now, I'm like halfway through, and I'm really hoping to finish it like by tomorrow at the very latest, just because I have a wedding to go to this weekend and I'll be leaving Friday for that. So I'm not going to be reading like at all for the entire weekend. Like I might bring a book just in case, but kind of doubt I'll be touching it at all, and I'm trying to just get as much books as I can. So the next book I'm gonna pick up is actually I Kissed a Girl, which is this book over here. It's I Kissed a Girl by Gilded Alexander, and this is going to be my additional quest where it reads a book with a building on the cover. There's a skyline there, so there are many buildings on this cover, and then after that I'm basically down to Fence, which is my graphic novel, and then 2 fantasies, which I will have to pick up physically. So after this book, I might try to, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next, to be honest. I might try to do the additional 3 quests that G put out like a few days ago at this point, and see if there's any audiobooks I can do to fulfill those quests. And if there isn't, I'm going to have to just pick up, you know, physical book on my TBR and like, you know, read from that. But it's just been a struggle because of this one trilogy that I'm trying to read, and it's just taking so much longer than I expected. But overall, I feel like I'm pretty happy that I finished 2 books, and it is only April 5th, 6th, something like that. Okay, so just jumping in quickly to give you another update because it is now Thursday noon-ish, and I think this is the last update I'll be able to give you guys until after the weekend, just because I'm leaving early tomorrow morning to my sister's place, and then we just have a bunch of like wedding things to do. So I don't think I'll be able to update you guys until after that, and then my sister's gonna be here for a few days. So I just want to update you guys in terms of my reading because so I started A Kiss the Girl and I did not vibe with it at all. I was really surprised because usually like contemporary reads are really easy for me to get through on audiobook, and I got to like 10% and I was like, I don't even know what's happening. I am just not like engaged with this book at all. So I ended up DNFing it, and I decided to find another book to cover this quest that I have, which is to find a book with a building on the cover. So I decided to go with this book over here. It's called A Lost Village by Camilla Sten. This is a like thriller suspense kind of like horror novel. It basically follows this whole situation about this lost village that was in the 1959, and apparently this whole village with like hundreds of people just like upped and disappeared. No one knows what happened to them. It's kind of like Roanoke, but you know, it's supposed to be set in, I want to say it's Europe, because they all talk about like Sweden and stuff like that. So I'm assuming it's like Scandinavia maybe in terms of like where it's actually set, and something like that. But like definitely like Europe setting for sure. And yeah, no one knows what happened to them, and the only 2 people left is this woman who apparently was stoned to death later. So I don't know like what happened there, as well as an abandoned newborn. And the main girl, Alice, she is a documentary filmmaker, and she wants to go back to this like village area and just basically film a documentary because her grandmother used to live in like the neighboring village or something like that, and she told her, like, kept passing on stories about this whole disappearance, etc. So Alice grew up knowing all about this situation, this tragedy, and so obviously she wants to go here right now to find out like what really happened. But the thing is, mysterious things start to happen. Apparently equipment is destroyed, people go missing, and they start to realize that they are not alone. So I am creeped out a little bit. Like, I picked this up like very late last night, and I read that and I was like, fucking ghost. I was like, what the hell is going on here? And I wanted to start it last night, but then I was like, wait, I'm by myself. I don't really want to read this right now because it sounds scary. And now I am listening to it while I am doing my work, and I'm about 34% of the way through. So I've definitely made some progress, but it is definitely not as scary as I thought it was gonna be. And honestly, like, I was not vibing from the beginning either, but I had to do my work, and then before I knew it, it was like 3 hours or so have gone by, and I'm like 34% of the way through. So at this point, like, I might as well just like finish it and see, because it's definitely got a little bit more interesting. So we'll see how this goes. But in the meantime though, I think I might end up doing a little break and pick up this book, which is Fence Volume 2. That way I can just tackle another book before the trip, essentially. And we'll see how this one goes, but I'm very excited to go into this one. It's a graphic novel. I feel like this would take me like 10 minutes to read. Very easy for sure. But yeah, I'm just updating you guys in terms of my reading. And then I don't know, like, I have to think about books to read next, because the other 2 books I have left on my TBR are both physical. So I need to figure out what I want to do for my quest, the 3 quests that G released, or maybe she has new quests coming out soon. I'm not sure. Hey guys, it's been many days since I have last updated you guys. It is now Monday, April 11th, and this weekend was my sister's wedding. It was very busy, lots of drinking, lots of dancing. I was exhausted when I got home yesterday. Anyways, but I do have some updates in terms of my reading. So I did finish 2 more books since I have last updated you guys. I think last time I updated you guys, I managed to start the audiobook of The Lost Village by Camilla Sten. I did end up finishing this, I think on Friday or something, like Friday morning or something, while I was heading to the nail salon with my sisters. So this book I ended up giving like 2 stars. It was just an okay read. It's supposed to be a horror book, but it was not actually that scary. I don't know, I just felt like I didn't really care about the characters or what was going on. I was expecting a lot more like creepy vibes, and that unfortunately didn't really happen. And for a horror book, that's kind of all you really expect from it, and for that to not happen, it was kind of a letdown. So that's all I can really say for this one, but this did fulfill my quest, my side quest of read a book with a building on the cover, so that fulfills that. And in addition, I did also pick up Fence Volume 2, which is for one of my curriculum. I forget exactly which it is at this point. I'll put it right here, but it did fulfill that one, which was to read a book under 100 pages. I know this is technically 112 pages, but I feel like with all the like pages of just artwork in the back and in the front, I feel like it definitely is just 100 pages probably, so I just read this anyways. I also feel like this is really short. Like, how is this 100 pages? I have no idea, but point is, I really enjoyed this book. It was really freaking cute. I forget how much I love the artwork in here and just how like everyone looks so freaking good, and I just love the banter between the two main characters. They're just so funny, and yeah, definitely can't wait to pick up the 3rd volume soon. So those are all the 2 books I did manage to finish since I last updated you guys. I did technically start a 3rd book, which was going to be the book where it was a side quest, one of the ones where she released about like read a book like a new to you author, and I was going to read this one, which is Once Upon a Sunset by Tiff Marcello. I've never read a book by this author before, but unfortunately I ended up DNFing it because it just wasn't interesting. Like, I thought it was gonna be a cute romance, and I got to like maybe 10% of the way through and I just lost interest completely, couldn't focus, and I don't know, I just feel like for a romance where it's just all about cutesiness, I was not feeling it. So I ended up DNFing this book, unfortunately. So now I have to find more books to pick up, but I think I'll take a break in terms of this readathon for now, because I really only have 2 more books left from my curriculum, and that is The Skin to the Sea as well as Raybearer. Once I finish those 2, like, I'm completely done except for any of the side quests I have. But the issue right now is that I am trying to read some physical books for other like videos on the side, other like vlogs, so I'm trying to prioritize those right now and also get to my April TBR, because I have yet to read, like, I read a few books from my April TBR, but like not a lot. So I want to get to reading some of those books because I only have 2 books left for this readathon technically. Hello, it's been a while. It is now Thursday, April, I think like 15th or something like that. It's still the same week of my last clip, and I told myself I was going to give, you know, some time to like do other things, and then I forgot that I was actually picking up an audiobook, which is Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaughey, and this is for my book club. So I have my book club meeting this Saturday, so I was like, I have to finish up this book. So I was listening to this on audio, and then I realized just now that this actually fulfills one of the side quests, which is a new to you author, because I've never read a book from this author before. So I decided to obviously just, you know, like, I didn't even realize it, but I fulfilled yet another quest. So I'm going to talk about this book very quickly, as well as the next book that I'm listening to, which is going to be another book that will fulfill another quest. So this is basically about a woman called Inti, where she's trying to basically reintroduce wolves back into the wild lands of like Scotland. And ever since she was young, she's been fascinated by wolves. She has an older sister called Aggie who has been protecting her all her life. There was some sort of like abusive like husband situation going on with Aggie, and she was doing her best to protect Inti, who was her younger sister. And there's a lot of like flashbacks between kind of like what brought them to Scotland and what brought them to this place in the first place, and there's a lot going there. But in present day, she is reintroducing wolves back into the wilderness, and obviously she had to let the people know that, you know, they will hear some like howling, etc. So they're just aware and mindful that there are now these like wild wolves, you know, in the wild, and basically to protect their own livestock, because a lot of people here in this town, in this village, are farmers. So everyone's a little bit concerned, obviously, because of wolves, and they have sheep, you know, and they're like wondering what they can do to protect their own livelihood. And then suddenly a man ends up being dead, and now Inti is trying to prove to everyone that it's not in fact the wolves, and, you know, figure out who exactly murdered this person. And that's what this book is about. This book was interesting. I definitely felt like DNFing it a few times because maybe because listening to an audiobook, I'm not sure what it was, but there was, like I said, like some flashbacks, and it was not very clear when those flashbacks were until like, you know, like halfway through, when something like obvious pops up and you're like, oh, I think this was like a while ago. And I also feel like there were a lot of incidences between not just like her flashback with like Aggie's abusive husband, but also like with their childhood, their father, their mother. There's a lot of like little flashbacks here and there, and some of them are like super short, so you're just like suddenly thrust into this like memory that you're not even aware that you're in. So that part's like super confusing, and the only thing that I can really say is that the ending caught me off guard. I really wanted to DNF this book, but by that point I had like 2 hours left of the audiobook, and I was like, I'm listening to 1.5 times speed, like I'll literally finish it like in over an hour, so I might as well just continue on with it and see how it goes. And I just finished it this morning. The ending was very unexpected. I definitely didn't see it coming, and there were a lot of things that Inti had to do to get there, and she made some mistakes along the way that was kind of like heartbreaking, but also I feel like it was validated because of what was happening. And Inti's end of the day is trying to save the wolves and also has their best interest at heart despite her mistakes. So I mean, I don't know what to give this book. I am debating between like a 2 or 3 star. I feel like the buildup was not the greatest, but the end was pretty interesting. Just when like everything was revealed with her sister, with Duncan, with just everything that's happening with the wolves, with number 10. There's just a lot of things that's happening at the very last like hour that was very fascinating, but everything else before that was not the greatest. So that's all I can really say about this book. But yeah, definitely new to me author, so it definitely counts for the side quest. And then in terms of the other audiobook I'm listening to right now is As Good as Dead. I am about to start that right now, but that can either fulfill 2 quests, which is, well, I can't do both of them, like they have to be a separate book. So I'm debating if it's either going to be the side quest of book that starts with a D or book that is a 5-star prediction. So I'm not sure, to be honest, because it obviously this book will be for both, or it qualifies for both. It really depends on like what book I read next and if another book will fulfill either one of these prompts. But I'm kind of leaning towards 5-star prediction just because I feel like I don't really have a ton of books that I usually think will be 5 stars, but this series has been freaking phenomenal, and I've given every single book in this series like 5 stars because it is just so gripping, and I just love the audiobooks for it. So I feel like I'm leaning towards a 5-star prediction one, just like I don't think I can find another book that will be 5 stars. But yeah, that's my update for now. Pretty short, but I somehow managed to read more books for this vlog, for this magical readathon. I didn't even realize it until like just now. So alright guys, so it's been, I don't know, like I don't even know when I last updated you guys, but I do have some updates because I just got another quest. G released a few more like specific calling quests, and I decided to take one for Beastmasters. So thought I'll share what my quest is, what my new quest is basically, as well as the book I'll be reading, plus kind of an update on what I have been reading. So I think last time I updated you guys, I was about to pick up this book, which is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is going to be one of my additional quests I'm doing. It's either going to be for the D or for the 5-star prediction. Haven't really decided yet, but as of right now it is really freaking good, so I feel like I'm leaning towards 5-star prediction. But it is just so fascinating. This is the 3rd and final book to the trilogy, and I don't know, like the audiobooks honestly for this series is just so mind-blowingly good because first of all it's like full cast, so all the characters get their own voices, and second of all you just get so much like, you just get so much more immersed with what's going on because of all like the stuff that's happening. So the audiobook is just a really good way to consume this book. But anyways, I'm really loving it. It is so gripping. I cannot wait to see what happens next, because right now this book basically follows Pip, where she is, you know, there's something that happened in the 2nd book and now she's kind of having like PTSD in a way, and she's just like, you know, can't, like she's definitely still dealing with what happened in the 2nd book and like what that meant for her specifically. And suddenly she starts getting these like emails, these tweets about, you know, what happens if you disappear, like who will find you then. And so now she's trying to figure out like what exactly is going on, and as the story progresses she finds out that this, like, she might be next and she might actually be murdered. Like now her life is, her own life is at stake, and so she's trying to solve this mystery, figure out who has been leaving these emails, like sending these emails, these tweets to her. Not only that, but the person also seems to know where she lives because she's also receiving these like dead pigeons, and these like chalk figures, and she's kind of like freaking out over everything. And then she somehow finds out there is a link to a previous case. So it's just a lot of stuff going on. I'm not going to go more into it because it's a spoiler. Definitely want to go into kind of like not knowing too much about it, but this is a book where Pip's life is now, her own life is now at stake, and she's trying to figure everything she can before it's too late for her. So very gripping. I'm about 41% of the way through and definitely cannot wait to finish this. Hopefully, I'm thinking like this weekend for sure, but I do have a few more hours of work left that I'll probably be listening to this while I like bust out my stuff for the weekend. So hopefully I'll get through a good chunk today. If not today, then I'll definitely finish it over the weekend. Now moving on to my quest. So there is a quest where she just released, and this one is about wolves. So the prompt for this one is to read a book with a wolf on the cover or in the title. So for this one, I'm going to go with the Gilded Wolves by Roshni Chokshi. This is going to be a reread for me because I read this first book, but I am trying to finish up the series, and I feel like I have read this book, like I read this book back in New York, and that's at least like 3 years ago at this point. So I don't remember what this book is about. I just remember it was like all about like high stakes. There was a cast of characters like misfits, and it's reminded me of like puzzle solving, mostly like Egyptian puzzle solving. I want to say like there was like Egyptian like elements to it somehow. But yeah, that's all I remember about this book, and I feel like so I had a lot of books I wanted to pick up originally, but because I'm going through my audiobooks a lot faster, I want to continue that trend. And I know that normally I can't do fantasy, but since this is a reread, I feel like I might be able to do a reread on audiobook because I actually like I technically already read this book, so I feel like it won't be as difficult for me to like grasp the magic world, like the magic system and like the fantasy world, because I have read this already. So that's kind of the plan. I hope, you know, it pans out well, because otherwise I'll be kind of scared because I'll be like rereading this and not know what's going on like at all. But yeah, that's kind of the plan for now. So I'm just jumping in quickly to give an update because I have managed to finish one book for this readathon, and then, or this vlog, and then I finished another book for something else, which means that I can now pick on 2 more books for this vlog. So the book that I want to talk about is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is gonna be for my 5-star quest because it was freaking phenomenal. She kept me at the edge of my seat until the very last page. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I was listening to an audiobook and I literally was just like sitting there waiting, like, okay, like I need to know, like there needs to be some sort of conclusion. I am like literally just like shaking because I need to know like what's gonna happen next. And it was like 2 minutes left to the audiobook and I was like, is this gonna happen? Is this not gonna happen? Like, what's happening? Until like the last freaking second, and then I was like, oh my god. And I just like sat there for a little bit because I was like, did it just finish? Like, oh my god. I feel like this book just culminated so much from the first 2 books. It really did bring everything back in full circle in terms of Pip and her relationships with all the characters that she helped in the first 2 books, and just kind of like how just everything came together. Like, it was just so well done. I would say like once the middle part, like this huge thing happens in the middle of the book, things became very crazy. And towards the end though, Pip did get a little bit annoying to me because I was so frustrated with her because I just felt like she kept overthinking things. And I mean, I can kind of see where she was coming from, because I'm like, you really do not want to fuck it up and miss something by accident, because she did that already and things backfired really hard for her. So there's just a lot of stuff happening in this book that I was like, I just felt like I wanted things to just play out properly, and she just kept going like, oh no, we forgot about this, and like it's not over. And then Ravi's just like, yes it is. But oh my god, this book is just so good. Like, the series is just freaking phenomenal. I loved how the book ended. I do wish there was a little bit more of like another chapter or something, like an epilogue, because that last like sentence like ended, but it was not satisfying. Like, it was just like just enough for you to be like, nice, like it concluded, I know what happens next. But I just wish there was a little bit, like just a little bit more like dialogue, you know, like I would have been so happy for that. But yeah, definitely 5 stars. Freaking phenomenal series. If you really like YA thrillers or just thrillers in general, definitely check out this one. I feel like I don't really know a ton of YA thrillers out there that are really good, and this is definitely one of them for sure. So because I finished that audiobook, I am now going to pick up the Gilded Wolves by Roshni Chokshi. This is going to be for my Beastmaster calling quest that I picked up. And the final update I have for you guys is the next book that I'm picking up physically. So I managed to finish the physical book that I was reading for a different video, and now I'm going to be reading Skin of the Sea by Natasha. Yeah, so this is the Owl Crate edition. It is so pretty. This is the naked hardcover. I already took the dust jacket off, but like just look how stunning this book is, and the inside too, really pretty. But yeah, I have to say I am currently on page 28 and I am not loving this book. I just don't know if it's just a really slow start or something. I feel like there's a lot of I feel like there's not a ton of dialogue going on, so all the author's really doing is just describing everything, like the waves, the currents, and like as she's basically trying to like, because her job really, so she used to be a human, and I think like it's been like 3 or 4 months, like not very long, where she has turned into a mermaid, and now her job is to follow this like mother, I think she's like a goddess or something like that, where basically like they bring on like souls that have passed away in the sea, and they, you know, bring them to rest, etc. And she collects these souls in this pendant of hers, and at the same time though, like she also kind of misses her, like her human life, because she does remember like some vague memories but not a lot. Like every time she goes onto land she remembers it, but whenever she goes back into the water and she has like her fin grows and everything, she kind of forgets, like they become a lot more vague. So that's all I can really say for this book so far. Like I said, it's just a little bit slow. Right now she just managed to save the boy, and apparently that goes against everything that she's supposed to do. And from what I understand from the synopsis, this like something happens to her, and this boy apparently knows things about the Mami Wata, which I believe they're called, for the mermaids, and he knows like secrets, and before long she like something's like following her. Like there's supposed to be like this epic adventurous fantasy. So far it is a little bit slow. Okay, not a little bit slow, but like very slow. So we'll see how this goes, but that's kind of my only update for now in terms of this book. I mean I literally just started, so I don't really have a ton to say, but I'm really hoping this book picks up faster, because this book is just too pretty for it to be a flop. So anyways, all right, jumping in quickly to do a quick update on my reading, because it has not been doing, I have been like struggling a little bit. So the first book that I want to talk about is Skin of the Sea, which I am now on page 122. This book has definitely picked up a little bit, but I'm not loving it so far. I'm about like a little less than halfway through. I don't know, I feel like it's okay. I am reading it pretty fast though, because I feel like the writing is just very, it's not like a writing that I need to, it's not a very dense writing, I guess I can say. So we'll see how this goes. There's definitely something about Kola that seems very suspicious, and I feel like the more we find out about like what he's doing and like his background, the more I'm like, I don't know, I feel like you know a little bit more than you're saying, and even the main character is starting to suspect him a little bit. So I'm kind of curious to see like what their interactions will be like. I also get an inkling that they'll fall in love, because it is a YA fantasy, and I feel like there's already been warnings from the goddess herself to be like, don't fall in love with him, don't get attached, etc. And I feel like she's gonna get attached, she's gonna fall in love, and I don't know, decisions will be made. But it is not like the best book so far. I would say it's a solid 3-star for now, but we'll see how this goes. And the other update I have for you guys is Gilded Wolves, which I did start this morning. I think I got to like 4% of the way through as an audiobook, and I decided to screw it because I cannot listen to an audiobook. I am already losing focus, and I'm like 30 minutes into it, so I am not going to pick up audiobook anymore. I'm going to read it physically, but because I'm reading it physically, I do need to find a new audiobook, and I'm going to go with Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yoon. This is going to fulfill my quest, which is to read a book that has a D in the title somewhere, and obviously dancing right here. So this book I'm about 20-25% of the way through right now. This book basically follows a girl whose father has cheated on their mom, and now they're getting divorced, and now she basically does not believe in love anymore. She used to be a huge romance reader, and obviously because of circumstances she's like, I don't believe in this, and she's getting rid of all her romance books. One day she ends up going to the library to donate her books, and she meets someone there who she gets into a conversation with, and suddenly she comes back and she starts to be able to see like couples entire journey, their beginning of when they got together, the middle of their relationship, and then the very end when they break up. And what she's learned is that every relationship breaks up, like there's no happily ever after. And so now I'm trying to figure out like what exactly is going on, how is she able to see this, like what's happening. And as the story progresses, right now she is somehow led to this ballroom dancing class, and you know, things happen from there. She meets a guy, obviously they're gonna fall in love at some point, so I'm curious to see how that happens, as well as, you know, what exactly was the purpose of that lady who she bumped into. And I guess she's trying to show her that, you know, love does exist, and even though there's an ending, you know, sometimes it's the journey that matters, you know, something cliche like that. I feel like that's the way how it's gonna go. We'll see, obviously, but I'm liking it so far. It's actually really cute. It's better than I expected. Okay, so the one thing I want to say about the narrator for Instructions for Dancing is I am not a huge fan for her at all. Okay, she's a very distinct voice, and so I googled her because I was curious to see like what she's done in the past before, because I'm like, I recognize her voice, it's very distinctive, I definitely know her from somewhere. And it turns out she is the narrator for the Children of Blood and Bone books, and I was not a fan of her in that series like at all. But the only reason, like the only redeeming factor about this is that the story itself is interesting enough, but like the narrator, like her voice, I can't stand. Like something about her, like the way how she like emphasizes certain words, I'm just like, I just can't stand the way how this person is like narrating it. And I feel like if I had read this physically, I would not have that like narration, like the way how she speaks in my head. So that's the only thing I say about the narrator. But in terms of the book itself though, I do feel like there's a lot of hypocrisy going on right now, especially the main character, because the whole point of the story is that she does not believe in love anymore. But the thing is, right now she's seeing all these visions of people breaking up, so it's just fueling the fact that she does not believe in love. She's like, what's the point of it? Because you'll have heartbreak, you'll break up, and things like, not just you guys, but sometimes like your friends, for example, will be influenced, like your friends and family will be influenced. So she's like, what's the point? But the issue right now with me is that she is treating her friends who are in a relationship as like, I can't be friends with you guys anymore because you guys don't break up, that you guys don't destroy the friendship, so like what's the point? But on the flip side though, she turns around and she's in a relationship with this guy, and I'm like, isn't that literally just so hypocritical of you? Because you're basically tooting to everyone that, hey, your relationship's not gonna last, your romance is not gonna last, you guys are gonna break up eventually, love doesn't last. Then why are you trying to get into a relationship yourself? I just feel like this kind of aggravates me, because I don't know, I just feel like for someone who's like so, you know, like adamant about how love does not exist, and how even the fact that she's seeing all these visions is proving her point, she's still going about a relationship herself. It's like, I'm confused here. So that's kind of my only issue with this book right now, and just like how hypocritical the main girl is, because I am not a fan. That being said though, I am enjoying the story overall. I mean, I don't like the main character, but I feel like everything else is like going, it's like cute, I'm enjoying it, I'm having a good time. I'm 70% of the way through, so I'm hoping to finish it, if not today, by tomorrow at the very latest. So update time. I read a book and I'm still reading other books, so let me just update you guys what I've been doing. The first book that I want to update you guys is The Skin of the Sea by Natasha. I am now on page 220, so I am almost done with this book. I am hoping to finish this today, to be honest. It was reading really fast, but the thing is, like, I'm not loving the book. I feel like I'm just reading it for the sake of reading it, and because it's such a fast read, I'm like, I might as well just finish it. Like, it's not a bad book or anything like that, but it's just not really attention grabbing, and I'm not super invested with the characters or the story, etc. But I'm just, you know, reading it for the sake of reading. So that's all I can really say for this one. Just an okay read. Like, it's very solid, like a 3-star read right now. Might even be like a 2.5 stars. Really depends on the ending at this point. On the other hand, I did manage to finish Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yoon. This is for my quest, which was to read a book with D in the title. And honestly, I enjoyed this book way more than I expected. I feel like even though the narrator's voice was very aggravating, and even though I felt like the main character was such a hypocrite, somehow I still really enjoyed it. And so I'm going to give this book 3.5 stars, even though I feel like without my enjoyment this would be a solid 3-star read. But for some reason, like, I was just, you know, happy while reading it, and I just had a good time. So yeah, this is 3.5 stars. I actually really enjoyed it. I like the ending. I like the message at the end. The guy was honestly like super cute. I do feel like the romance, even though it was gradual, it also felt like it was a little forced at times. But anyways, enjoyed it overall. Like, this is probably one of my better experience with her books, because I feel like her books are honestly a hit or miss for me. They're all just like average, but somehow I enjoy this book more than I think I did with her other books. But now that I finished that book, I have moved on to Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. This is going to be for the quest, which is to read a new to you author. I have never read a book by this author before. I've heard so much about this book though, so much about the author, that obviously I was like, I want to read something fluffy and romancy, and this is the one I'm going to pick up. I have high expectations for this one. I've heard so many good things, but I looked up Goodreads and I feel like the rating, like the average rating, was lower than I expected it to be based on all the hype that I've, you know, seen this book got. But this is basically about a girl called Georgette, where she is the baby sister in her family and no one really takes her seriously. She has this huge crush on this major baseball player. His name is Travis Ford, and one day like some sort of injury happened and it ended his career, so he's now back in town, and now Georgette is trying to prove to everyone that she's not the little sister, as well as prove to Travis that she's not the kid sister that he remembered, because she's always had this massive crush on him. It's supposed to be very cute, kind of smutty. We'll see how this goes. I am only like 3 or 4% of the way through, so I'm definitely not far, but I can definitely say that right now I'm not like super invested in the story. Like, it's just okay. So I'm hoping things pick up, but it's definitely a slow start for now. Okay, just doing a quick update because I just finished reading Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. This was honestly such a average read. Like, I was just never invested, never cared. I definitely felt like it was just like everything I said before still applies. Now that I finished this book, it's still a 3-star read, which is such a bummer because this cover, like, this book is just so freaking pretty. But this is definitely one of those instances where it's like, don't judge a book by its cover, because the inside did not reflect on what was outside. So like, it was not a bad book, but it wasn't amazing. Like, I just expected so much more, I guess, especially for a like a Little Mermaid retelling that's inspired by West African mythology. I just wanted more, and I felt like it didn't really deliver. So anyways, kind of disappointing on this end. But since I finished that book, I am now going to pick up Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko. This is my last and final book for my curriculum, and then once I'm done, I am just going to focus on quest. I still have to read Gilded Wolves because that is a quest I specifically claimed, and then the rest are kind of just if I feel like reading it, etc., as much as I can, possibly, whatever. It's no pressure. But yeah, I definitely want to pick up this one and get to reading. I feel like this book I have higher expectations because this book has been talked about for over a year now, and I just hear like so many rave reviews. This one also has a much higher rating compared to Skin of the Sea, so we'll see how this goes in terms of like average rating. But we all know Goodreads is very controversial, but yeah, I'm just excited to see like how this will go. I have no idea what this book is about, but I do know that because this is for the curriculum for like a healer, I believe there is a healer in here or some sort of character who uses like singing to heal people. So that's what I'm gonna be using this book for. So I'm back in this position again. You know, it just makes things easier. But I did have updates for you guys because I finished a book, I am enjoying another book, and I'm about to start a third book. So the book I just finished is Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. This is the one where it fulfills the new to me author quest. I actually really enjoyed this book. I felt like the beginning was very slow to start, but once I hit like a certain point, it became very good, and there was a very steamy scenes, like a lot of them actually, and I just became like so invested in the story. I did feel like the ending was this like a sudden miscommunication situation that I was like, I could have been avoided if people had actually talked to each other, and if people had just listened to each other rather than just immediately come to conclusions. So that's the one part that I was kind of like, I feel like the author just did this to create some sort of conflict, but it was not very necessary. And I don't know, like I felt like I would have preferred another type of conflict instead, just because I feel like this conflict was so, it didn't really seem in line with the characters and like their relationship already, especially with the main character Georgette. I feel like she was very, you know, understanding and everything, and suddenly she's like not, and I'm like, it doesn't seem like it's in line with your character. So that's the only thing I can really say about this book. Otherwise, I really enjoyed it. I'm giving this like 3.5 stars. And then in the meantime, I'm still reading Raybearer. I am now on page 103, so I do still have some ways to go, but I'm actually really enjoying this book. It's super fascinating. It basically follows this character. Her name is Tarisai, who was raised in this secluded magical castle or house or whatever, and she was known as the lady's daughter. And the lady, no one knows her name, and she's just like very powerful, has a lot of like secrets and like hidden past, especially from the daughter. And all the daughter knows is that she is half Eru, which I believe is some sort of like god or like demon or something like that, something like magical creature. I want to say like half genie because of this Eru's like gifts. So the lady many years ago captured this Eru and forced him to grant her wishes, and there's one wish that he couldn't grant her, so she basically decided to create an abomination, aka a child between the two of them, to fulfill this wish of hers. And so that's Tarisai, and that's like the very beginning premise of this book. And now Tarisai is somehow infiltrated into the crown prince, and the crown prince's like background is that they need to have this council of 11, and they are all connected by the ray. And what that means is that they're basically like telepathically connected, and if they go away from each other, they apparently get sick and they die. So it's like a very magical strong bond between all of them. And so the crown prince, basically what he's doing is that at a very young age he is forming all these like friends that will ultimately basically become his council of 11. And so Tarisai goes into it to become one of his council of 11 to kill him. Like that's the whole premise of this book. So obviously like she goes in, there's things happening, and this is not considered a spoiler just because this is all stuff that's mentioned very quickly in the beginning. And I'm super invested. I want to know like how Tarisai will like evade like the wishes of the lady, like aka her mother, and how the story will continue with the crown prince and Tarisai and all that stuff. There's a lot of layers and I'm very intrigued. Plus there's so many characters, because this is basically called like the children's palace, where there's so many children who just go in and they're all vying to become one of the council of 11, and they all have these like halo, which are these gifts. And her gift is to actually be able to read memories, and so if she touches like objects or people, she can actually read the memories of something that happened to them, whether it is recent or a long time ago. It's just something that, you know, it's her gift. And everyone there also have their own gifts. So there's just like a lot of stuff going on, a lot of character, a lot of magical like talents. It's very intriguing. I'm really enjoying it. I feel like it's a little bit hard to understand sometimes or follow, just because there's so many characters and so many talents, like magical like halos. But the plot itself is very intriguing and I'm very invested. All right, moving on to the third update I have for you guys, and that is my next audiobook, because I'm just flying through these. And this is going to be for another quest that she released, and that is to borrow a book from the library. So I'm going to go with Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This is a book that obviously I own, but I am borrowing the audiobook from the library so I can listen to it from there. I'm very excited for this book. I read his other book before and that was freaking good. Like it was so fascinating, so I have very high hopes for this one. I heard that this one's even better. I have no idea what this is about, but it says that it's Are You Happy for Your Life, and apparently someone gets knocked unconscious and he wakes up to a world that he's not the one that he knows. His wife is not his wife, his son was never born, and he is not an ordinary college physics professor but a celebrated genius who has achieved something remarkable. So is it this life or the other that's the dream, and how can he find out, and how can he make it back to the family that he loves? There is a lot of like sci-fi. It's very sci-fi, action packed. I'm very intrigued by this book. It sounds freaking good, and because of my like this other book that I read from him and it's really good, I have very high hopes for this one, so we'll see how that goes. But that's kind of like my update for now. Hello. So it is now Tuesday evening and It's been a while since I've last updated you guys. I was busy on my weekend trip and I didn't read a ton, but I did manage to finish one book when I got back yesterday, and now it is Tuesday evening. So it's just been like, I've been very tired. I feel like the weekend drained a lot out of me. It was so much fun. Highly recommend going to Paso Robles, guys, if you're like a huge wine person. They have, I think there's like over 100 vineyards and wineries there, which is freaking amazing, and there's literally so many different vibes. So if you want something that's more like modern, a little bit more country style, a little bit more like focused on like sweeter wines, they have so many varieties there and it's just perfect. So I went to like 4. Great experience, highly recommend. But let's just kind of talk about my little updates for now. So I did manage to finish reading Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko. This book was really freaking good. I'm gonna give this book like 4.5 stars. It's not quite a 5-star read yet. I just don't know what it is that's missing from it, but I really enjoyed this book. The plot was really good. The characters, like their development, their relationships together were fantastic. I really liked how everything concluded as well, and I cannot wait to pick up the second book. I just purchased it from Amazon because I was like, I need to know what happens next. And there leaves a lot at the end of this book. There's also this whole like political issue with Songland and their empire, and just dealing with like the dead and like the spirits there. It's very complicated. It's definitely not a very like linear like magic system or like a simple magic system. There's a lot of complexities to it, a lot of layers, a lot of depth to it, and it was just really fascinating to read about. I really also love the friendships as well as some of the romances that were formed. It was really fascinating just to read like all about their experience together, especially in the council. Like when you're part of the council, there's a ray where you can literally just basically like telepathy, and if you stay away from them too long, you actually get sick and you can potentially die. So like it's really interesting to see like how that plays out and why people will, you know, want to join the council. But yeah, it's just a really interesting book. I can see the hype now. Like it's just really fascinating, and like when I finished it last night, I was like, should I finish it? I only have a chapter left, and I was like, I need to know kind of what happens next. And it was good, really fabulous. I think it's more like a 4.5 stars, to be honest. It's just a really good fantasy world, very good fantasy book, and I highly recommend it. So I'm really happy I read this one. So this basically concludes the curriculum side to what I have been doing for my calling. Now I have moved on to my other 2 books that I'm currently reading, which are both for quest. The only one that I kind of have to read right now is the quest I did claim, and that is to read with the wolves one. And so I'm now picked up with Gilded Wolves. I am now on page 52, so I definitely haven't made a ton of progress, but I don't know, I feel like the second time I'm reading this book, it's just not as good as I remember the first time I read it. It's also very slow, so I don't know, maybe I'm just like not in the mood for it. I have no idea, but I definitely want to continue on this book and just try to read it this week, because I have until technically end of Saturday, because that's when the month ends. So we'll see how that goes, but that's kind of my plan for the rest of the week, to just finish this one. Now in terms of my audiobook, which is for another quest that I am doing, I am now almost 70% of the way through, and honestly it's like a really interesting book. I don't know, I feel like I don't even remember what his previous book Recursion is about, but I want to say it also has to do with like a multiverse and like parallel universes, something like that. But it's been a while, but I feel like his 2 books right now just are kind of similar from what I remember. So it's really interesting, but definitely a little bit harder to kind of follow sometimes on audiobook. I definitely am not like loving it, but it's okay. Like I'm not like disliking it or anything, but that's what I'm really say for my update for now. I wonder if this is gonna be one of my last update before I wrap everything up, because it is now Wednesday of April, and honestly I really thought that once I finish my calling curriculum I'll be done with this vlog, but I've just been picking up new quests and therefore new books to read, and so I've just been continuing on with this vlog, and this vlog has literally lasted me the entire month. So we'll see how this goes. I've read a ton already this month. I do have an update because I did manage to finish reading Dark Matter, which was really freaking good. I'm gonna give that book like 4 stars. I think Recursion still was better. I don't know why, but they're both very similar, like very sci-fi. They just both have very like sci-fi elements to it. This book was really interesting because I feel like the way how the book ended and the whole like multiverse theory, and just the fact that every decision that you make will branch out and that basically be a new you, which is so fascinating to read about, especially towards the end. Like it became like more and more crazy, because I just kept thinking to myself like, imagine if there was a Stephanie that lived like all the different options. Like maybe one went to a different university, maybe one, like, you know, had like was already married because I had stuck with an ex or something like that. Like that is just crazy and like mind-boggling to me that universes like these can possibly exist. I mean, I kind of doubt it, but you know, there's a whole like multiverse theory for a reason. Like people really do believe it. But yeah, like it's just a really fascinating book. Definitely 4 stars. I don't think it's quite a 5-star read, but I was definitely very engaged afterwards, especially the last like 25% of the book. I was like, I need to know like how this is going to end, and we have to follow this main character who he realizes that, you know, he is not the only Jason in the world. So it was a wild ride, really enjoyed it. But I do have a few more updates in terms of my reading. So I'm still reading Gilded Wolves, which I'm really hoping to finish. I'm now on page 126 and nothing much else to add to this book, to be honest. It's getting better, but I don't know, like I'm still like about this book. Like I'm supposed to be like finishing up the series, but I'm still like, I'm already struggling to finish the first book, so we'll see how this goes. But this is a book that I actually claimed for a quest, so I'm gonna try to at least finish this book, hopefully. So basically, like right now I'm just trying to finish this book, but like that's like my main goal. But because I did also manage to finish the quest for Dark Matter, which is to read a book borrowed from a library, I'm gonna pick up Never Have I Ever by Jocelyn Jackson. This is a book for yet another quest, which is read a book with a purple cover, which is, this is very purple. This is pretty much all purple, to be honest, like purple and white. So this definitely fits that theme. But yeah, all I know is that this is a thriller suspense and about this woman who did something that has some sort of like big secret, and one day she's at a book club and this woman walks in who I guess is new or something like that, and she apparently knows the main character's secret, and things kind of go from there. I'm not really sure what happens, but I've heard pretty good things about this book when it first came out back in 2019, so it's definitely been a few years. But yeah, that's all I can say for this one. So basically my goal right now is to finish these 2 books, and hopefully I finish these super soon, because I only have like 3 days left for the month, so we'll see how this goes. All right, so I'm here to just close out my magical readathon vlog with all the books that I read and some basic information. I have my bullet journal of my spread over here, and I just want to say that I was looking through it right now and I realized I made a mistake. I counted the new to you author twice by accident, so I don't know, I'm still in the middle of editing right now and I haven't got to that point where I miscalculated. So I talked about it like twice and I read like 2 different books for the same quest, forgetting that I had already done the quest. So you know, this is what happens when you read too many books. And anyways, so for the orilium, my calling was for Beastmaster, and I had 5 curriculum for this. First one is lore, which I read Skin of the Sea, which I gave 2.5 stars. Second one is restoration, which I read Raybearer, which I gave 4.5 stars. Then for alchemy, I read the Bromance Book Club, which I gave 3.5 stars. Then for animal studies, I read Survive the Night, which I gave 4 stars. And the last curriculum that I had to do was elemental studies, and for that one I read Fence of Volume 2. This book I gave 4 stars. And then I did additional 7 quests over here. So the first quest I did was Building on Cover, which I read A Lost Village. The next quest I did was New to You author, and I originally put down Once There Were Wolves, which I read, but then later on I also read Fix Her Up, which was also a new to you author, but we're only going to count 1, okay? Then the next quest I did was 5-star prediction, which is As Good as Dead. The next quest I did was D in the Title, which I read Instructions for Dancing. Then the next quest is borrowed from the library, which I read Dark Matter. The next one over here is a quest that I had claimed, and that is to read a book on the cover or title with Woof, and for this one I read Gilded Wolves. And the last and final quest that I snagged was Purple Cover, and this one I read Never Have I Ever. So for the quest itself, I had additional 70 points for my guild, and then for the fact that I finished this readathon, I believe it's like 50 points. And then from my Gear Up readathon, I don't know if the Gear Up and the other one counted too, but I know one of them counted as 50 points as well. So now I have a total of 170 points. So I am now in assistant, which means that I can count genuine DNFs. for books. So I guess like for moving forward for any of the quests or curriculum or whatever, if I decide to DNF it, it still counts for the curriculum / quest. So I'm actually kind of excited that I have this ability now, because that's pretty cool, and that would definitely help, especially like if I end up picking ones that are like very lengthy or whatever. So anyways, that is it in terms of this readathon. I'm honestly really proud of how well I did and how many books I ended up reading, because I was not expecting this. I read a total of 12 books, and yeah, like that's all I can really say. But this was an experiment. I really expected to just read my curriculum and maybe like a couple quests. I did not expect to just pick up so many quests, because they just kept coming. And the books that I was picking up for audiobook, because I already finished my April TBR except for one book, which was fantasy, and I couldn't read that on audiobook anyway, so I was like, I might as well just pick up audiobooks that can fulfill these quests, which is exactly what I did. And so I ended up reading so much more than I expected. But I'm happy that I read all these books. Let me know down below if you had participated in the magical readathon, and if you did, what was your calling and how many books did you read, how did you do? Give me all the details. But as always, if you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. It really does help out my channel. And if you'd like to see more of me, please don't hesitate to subscribe down below, as well as hit the notification bell. And as always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.